Joining Bob on stage for our final conversation this morning is House Democratic Whip, Congressman Steny Hoyer. Congressman Hoyer is the second highest ranking Democrat in the House of Representatives. Since joining Congress in 1981, Congressman Hoyer has explored bipartisan solutions to children's health care, ending the U.S. involvement in Yemen, and immigration reform. Bob, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Congressman. Hey, thanks for coming.
How are you?
Please take a seat.
Great. Good morning.
Thanks for joining us today. I wanted to ask you about news that's breaking right now that Paul Ryan is not going to seek re-election. Various media outlets, including The Hill, are reporting this. Does that surprise you?
It's been talked about for a lot.
It has. A lot of speculation.
So a lot of speculation, and usually where there's some smoke, there's some fire.
Right.
So, good friends of his have sort of alluded to this.
Yes.
Now, as I understand, it hasn't been formally announced, so we'll see.
Formally,
but
right.
It appears to be trending, we'll say.
Well, and if it does become official, there are a lot of Republicans in the House who are retiring. Is that, do you think, because they sense a blue wave coming?
I don't think there's any doubt that one of the reasons you're seeing a lot of retirements is they're looking at polls.
Sure.
And the polls reflect, Congressman, you're not going to win this election, or Congresswoman, you're not going to win this election. And as a result, why do they want to raise a lot of money, spend a lot of time and effort to lose an election? Mm-hmm. And so they're saying, packing up, I'm going to do something else. When you see a spike, as we've seen a very significant spike in Republican retirements or leaving for one reason or another, some for not so good reasons, mm-hmm. but a spike, almost invariably you see a spike in the other party picking up a substantial number of seats.
Right.
So I think we're going to take back the House, in my opinion. I'm very bullish on our opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I just left a meeting with Ben Ray Lujan, and mm-hmm. We have 104 seats in play. That's incredible number of seats. That's a quarter of the House. Especially
with all the gerrymandering.
Yeah.
Yes. No, that's. Before this event, I was thinking about a poll we did almost a decade ago, and my colleague and I, we asked Republicans about Democrats and Democrats about Republicans, and asked who is the most bipartisan member of the other party, and Republicans said by far that you were number one, that they disagreed with you, but they enjoyed working with you and they respected you. And that's a real tough balance in this town. And it was striking that, I mean, I talked to about 40 lawmakers, and my colleague did as well. How do you do that balance? Because it's rare in Washington, honestly.
You know, of course, I was in the state Senate for some period of time. I was president of the state Senate. We had about a 3-to-1 majority, mm-hmm. Democrats. So the Republicans, there was no necessity or reason to be that bipartisan, because mm-hmm. if you're going to be partisan, you weren't going to get things done. So I think I grew up in an atmosphere where, look, we're 47 people. We've been elected. We need to work together. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, I like the Republicans. Mm-hmm. And I think I try to work with them. I've had some very, very good relationships, starting Bob Michael and I, very good friends. I had great respect for him. Trent Lott, mm-hmm. great respect for. DeLay and I, we had almost totally different ideas, sure. but we cared about the institution, and we worked together on institutional issues. Roy Blunt and I are good friends. Mm-hmm. And I don't find any problem. There are a lot of really good people on the Republican side. You know what I say, Bob? I say the Congress is less than the sum of its parts.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? I think they're good people on both sides. But when we get together, we're not working very well constructively. And that's unfortunate. McCarthy and I have a very good relationship. As I said, Roy Blunt, one of his predecessors, mm-hmm. one of my very good friends. I don't mean Republican friends or Democrat, but good friends. We have great respect for one another, and we were able to work together on a number of things. And I work at trying to give everybody in the House respect. Mm-hmm. They're elected by 750,000 people sent here to represent those views, and I respect them. I may disagree with them, and I think if you respect people, they return that respect.
I was talking to Mike Pence when he was a member, when we were doing this polling project, and he said that partisanship has increased because members aren't sticking around over the weekends. They're getting on planes. That's part of the reason that D.C. has become so polarized. Do you think that's the reason, or are there other reasons?
Bob, I think that is part of it. Obviously, if you see one another only in the arena,
Right.
where you're contesting,
Right.
And you don't see people at the movie theater, or at the ball game, or in their home or your home having dinner. If you're only in the arena, there tends to be a greater sense of contest,
Sure.
sense of conflict. However, having said that, I think our society has become more polarized, and democracy works. As the society became more polarized, people elected more polarizing members. So that I think the Congress reflects, in many respects, the polarization that we see in the country now. And you see that polarization where Trump voters can't understand why others aren't for Trump, and people who aren't for Trump can't have the faintest idea how somebody could be for Trump. It's not a nuance of judgment. It is just a totally different way of thinking about who ought to be president of the United States. In addition to that, we've had Facebook hearings. I mean, there are ways now to, in effect, categorize people and put them in slots, much more scientifically than once could be the case. And so you can appeal to their partisan instincts, their small, narrow interests, as opposed to their large interests. As you know, I'm pursuing an agenda called Make It in America,
Yes.
which tends to do exactly the opposite, which tends to appeal to, on a Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, make it in America. Let's have an agenda that creates success. And if you're working on an agenda that has broad bipartisan support, I think you'll have bipartisanship in the Congress.
And you've worked on that agenda for almost a decade now. You're on a listening tour,
Yes.
traveling around the United States. What are people saying?
They're saying that that's what they want us to do. And I was in Mark Pocahn's district in Wisconsin, and Ron Kynes. Now, they represent two different sort of parts of the party. Basic, however,
Pocan being more progressive.
More progressive, Ron Kynes being more centrist, but both committed to an agenda that helps working people and the greatest number of people have a successful participation in the economy and successful families and life. And what I hear when I go to the business community, the labor community, talk to workers, talk to conservatives, talk to people in the Midwest or either coast, is that that's what they want us to be doing. Make sure that America is more successful so that they can make it, they and their families can make it, which not only means sort of, producing a glass, or zeros and ones for that matter, but also it means succeeding. You make it.
We'll open it up for questions, but I wanted to ask you really the news of the week. At least there seems to be multiple stories of the day that happen nowadays. But I was talking to Senator Alexander about the possibility that Robert Mueller, in one way or the other, will be ousted, fired through Rosenstein. What would happen if Trump did that? Senator Alexander, like a lot of Republicans, said that would be a bad idea.
I think there is a consensus in the Congress on both sides of the aisle that would be a bad idea. Not only for Bob Mueller, not only for this particular investigation, but for what makes America unique, a nation of laws, not of men. Nobody's above the law. And if Mueller was fired or removed, when clearly the American public knows that he is pursuing in a very considered and measured way. Now, you can disagree with what he's done, but Mueller had great respect, both sides of the aisle. I think it would undermine some basic values of the United States of America. And I think the Congress should not let that happen. I would hope the President would not pursue that. And I would hope that we would have, as Gowdy said, Trey Gowdy, of the Congress, he said, look, if you're not guilty, if you don't believe there's collusion or you don't believe there's wrongdoing, let Mueller do his job, because he will have the greatest credibility to exonerate you.
Right.
If he concludes, no, there was no criminal wrongdoing here, the public will be very convinced that there was no wrongdoing there.
So you think that Congress should vote to protect Mueller now?
I think that certainly we ought to consider that option if, in fact, there's a lot of rumors, but there are always a lot of rumors.
Sure.
And we've gone now for a year with those rumors being saying that either Rob Rosenstein was going to be fired or Mueller was going to be fired. That hasn't happened. I know the president's got a lot of advisors who advised him not to. Of course, many of them have been fired.
Yes, yes.
So
Yes.
maybe it's not great assurance for Mueller or for us.
That's true. That's true. We got a few minutes left, so we can open it up for questions. We have one in the front, very front. If you can just wait for the mic and identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Dominic Gotti. I'm a freshman at American University. You spoke earlier about the Democrats having a very high likelihood to take back the House this upcoming election with especially strong numbers. How do you, as the leadership of the Democratic Party, make sure that bipartisanship is still on the agenda with a strong majority in the House and not get overzealous with that new power?
Well, you know, as I said, I worked with Leader McCarthy, who's the majority leader in the House now. We have a good relationship now. We have a colloquy some weeks when we go back and forth, and we can be pretty tough on one another. He represents his party, I represent my party and our beliefs, and he represents his party. When the colloquy's over, we talk to kid with one another, and we've worked on some very important legislation together. Russian sanctions being one of those, where we had over 400 votes for a bill that said to the President of the United States, Russian sanctions need to be tougher, expressing some concern that the President wasn't being tough enough. Information technology management and updating and technology so that we can be a more transparent, more communicative government. We worked on that together, passed overwhelmingly signed by the President. We went down to Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands together. I would want to continue that if we were the majority, as I did with Eric Cantor and John Boehner when I was majority leader. So this is not something I say I want to do. I am very pleased that the Republicans believe that I am a bipartisan member in the sense that I will listen, work where we can work together. I worked with Steve Fincher from Tennessee and Frank Lucas from Oklahoma, who was the chairman of the Ag Committee, both on the Financial Services Committee, to get the XM Bank reauthorized. So I have a history of having done that. So in the majority, I would continue to do that. And the reason I would continue to do it is because I think, A, that's what Americans want, and B, if you want to get things done in a sustainable way, that is how you do it.
And then here in the middle row, second row in the middle.
Thanks. Hello, Congressman. My name is Nick Jeebus. I'm a reporter with the Daily Caller.
Hi, Nick.
Hi. One of your colleagues in Congress, Senator Cory Gardner, went on television yesterday, and he expressed concern that the Facebook hearings would lead to greater regulation of an otherwise open and free internet. So can you give us assurances here today that there are no plans in the House to use this to push more regulation of the internet at large?
Well, look, you have two very strong values here. One is free speech and openness and transparency. The other is privacy. Both are important values. When you used to use a telephone, you knew that the telephone line was secure. Why did you know it was secure? Because the law said that in order for somebody to listen in, they had to get a search warrant. Now, of course, when you use your devices, you sort of throw out your information on the air, or you put it on Facebook, but it's in the air, subject to being purloined, stolen. And I think the Congress has the responsibility to try to protect both of those rights, and you have to balance them. So I wouldn't want to predict, and you say, can I give you assurance? First of all, I think we need to get through hearings. The Russian invasion of our election, very, very serious. The non-security of information that people put on the web or on Facebook or on other devices. Perhaps they don't expect that to be protected. But if that information is being used, in effect, to target them, which is, of course, for specific reasons, that is of concern to the public. So we're going to have to make a balance. We're going to have to look at that. We don't have all the information yet. And the technology is absolutely going to be with us in the future. And we as a society, within the framework of our Constitution, the First Amendment, and protecting the ability to talk to one another and put information out, have to figure out how we can best do that in protecting both of the values of privacy and open speech.
We've run out of time. Congressman?
We've run out of time.
Thanks for so much. Please thank the Congressman.
Thank you all.
I'll hand it back to Diana. Hey, thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Bob and Congressman Hoyer. This brings us to the end of the program this morning. On behalf of The Hill and our sponsors, American University School of Public Affairs and the Kennedy Political Union, I would like to thank all of you in the room and those of you who tuned into the live stream. If you missed any portion of the discussion, the full event video will be available on thehill.com shortly. As a reminder, please be sure to fill out our event feedback survey. You can hand your form to any member of the Hill staff on your way out. And finally, we hope to see many of you at our next event, Latinos in College, Closing the Graduation Gap, a solutions-focused conversation on Hispanic student success. Thank you.